Remember back in the day when you had favorite shows that you could not miss? Welcome to Days Gone By as we delve into the forgotten TV shows from the good old days. Laverne Shirley was a classic sitcom that aired on ABC from 1976 to 1983. It starred best friends Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams. The show, a spin-off from Happy Days, followed their adventures in their Milwaukee home. In later seasons, the pair moved to California. The two women endeared themselves to their audience with humor and profound moments. Making Our Dreams Come True was the sitcom's catchy theme song, which everyone sang along to and captured the show's essence. The adventures of the two friends always had a valuable lesson and were full of laughter. Cindy Williams left the show in the last season in 1983, and the show ended when the ratings dropped. Manimal, a TV show from the 80s, captured our imagination with Dr. Jonathan Chase, who could transform into any animal to solve crimes. Each episode featured the wealthy Dr. Chase's thrilling adventures as he morphed into a panther or hawk. He used the instincts of the animal he morphed into to fight crime. The show only lasted 8 episodes, but gathered a cult-like following due to its cutting-edge special effects, a novelty in the 80s. The show ended due to low ratings, but it remains a beloved TV show from the past. Most, if not all of us, grew up watching Sesame Street. It debuted in 1969 and took TV and kids by storm. The show used a classic mix of live action, puppetry, and animation to teach kids everything from social skills to numbers and the alphabet. Sesame Street became a household name in almost all homes in the US and the world. The characters, Big Bird, Cookie Monster, and Elmo, became instant celebrities. Their objective was to make learning accessible and fun for every child. The show kept reinventing itself, staying relevant to the day's issues. It has remained true to its educational content, which kept the show alive for over 5 decades. If you were a teenager in the mid-80s, you must remember this American sitcom. This hilarious classic ran for more than 5 seasons after premiering in 1985. It was the launching pad for stars like Regina King and Jackée Harris, who starred as Sandra Clark. Harris was hilarious and is remembered by many in her Sandra role. Decades later, she won an Emmy Award and was nominated for the Golden Globe. Adapted from a play, the sitcom revolved around the tenants of a middle-class apartment number 227. Automan premiered on the 15th of December 1983. It had 13 filmed episodes, but only 12 aired. The show was about Walter Nebeker, a police officer who was also a computer programmer. Nebeker created an artificially intelligent program that made a hologram that came alive at night. The hologram would leave the computer and merge with Walter, helping him fight crime. When it wasn't merged with Walter, the hologram was known as Otto J. Mann. When Nebeker merged with Otto, they became one being, sharing consciousness and their skills, but retaining Otto Mann's invulnerability. The show was canceled for poor ratings and the steep cost of the special effects. Did you know that ALF was an acronym for Alien Life Form? Neither did I, yet we watched ALF back in the 80s. By today's standards, ALF looks ridiculous, but it seemed very realistic back then. ALF was an alien who crash-landed into a suburban neighborhood. Damaged beyond repair, ALF's spaceship could not take him back to Melmac, his home planet.
Hi there! Gordon Shumway, nice to meet you.
He had no choice but to live with the Tanners, a typical white picket fence American family. The show's 4 seasons aired from 1986 to 1990, and we all loved ALF. who dripped with sarcasm and feisty comebacks. He was always trying to eat the family cat, which made the show even more hilarious. The 1980s were rife with superpower themes. Misfits of Science premiered on the 4th of October, 1985. The show followed 4 people with various superpowers, including a telekinetic teen, a shrinking man, an electric rock and roll musician, and Iceman, who froze everything he touched, but could die if he got too warm. The show aired on NBC until the 21st of February, 1986. If you were a TV buff from that day, I'm sure you remember this show, which has sadly slipped people's minds. For those who remember Punky Brewster, you may remember a feisty, bright, warm little brunette. Punky's dad walked out on her and her mother. Her mom later abandoned her and her dog, Brandon, at a shopping center while grocery shopping. Afterward, the little girl discovered a vacant apartment in a building. Henry Warnemont, a grouchy 60-year-old photographer who managed the building, found her in the apartment and took her in. An animated spin-off, It's Punky Brewster, spawned from the sitcom and aired from September 1985 to December 1986. It may have run briefly, but it had a lasting impact. Into the Labyrinth was a British kids' TV series that aired between 1980 and 1982. Peter Graham Scott produced and directed 3 seasons, each with 7 25-minute episodes. The series followed a feud between 2 sorcerers, Rothgo and the evil Belor. Each sorcerer sought a magical object known as the Nidus, which possessed infinite power. Belor stole the Nidus from Rothgo, the rightful owner, and sent it via magic through time and space to prevent Rothgo from ever recovering it. Without the Nidus, Rothgo would die. And in the first season, 3 kids from the modern world found an almost lifeless Rothgo in a labyrinth cave. Rothgo sent the kids through time and space to search for the Nidus. If anything, most people remember Into the Labyrinth for its haunting theme song, which made the series feel like a horror sci-fi. Hats off if you remember Hannay. Major General Hannay was a fictional character who first appeared in Scottish author John Buchanan's book, The 39 Steps. He became even more popular when, in 1935, Alfred Hitchcock made a film loosely adapted from the book. The show had 13 episodes and aired between 1988 and 1989. Hannay was involved in a daredevil adventure each week. He faced dangerous life or death situations that would leave you hanging on the edge of your seat in suspense. Would he make it out alive? Somehow, Hannay would escape, leaving you yearning for more adventures. If you grew up in the 90s, do you realize it's been some 30-odd years since? As a teenager in the 1990s, mystery shows were a dime a dozen. But few stood out like Are You Afraid of the Dark? This Nickelodeon gem aired from 1992 to 1996, spanning 7 seasons. Each episode began with teens sitting around a campfire deep in the woods. Each week brought a new spooky ghost story and ended the same way, with one person dumping a bucket of water on the fire and declaring, "I declare this meeting of the Midnight Society closed." The stories revolved around haunted houses, aliens, demons, magic, curses, witches, werewolves, vampires, and ghosts. They were always spooky, keeping you hanging on every word, with your hair standing on end. Who remembers Starman, the series? Starman was a science fiction TV series based on the 1984 film of the same name. The series aired on ABC from September 1986 to May 1987 and had 22 exciting episodes. The story takes place 15 years after the film. It features the return of an alien who clones himself as a deceased photojournalist. He meets and guides his teenage son, born in the 1984 movie. Their goal? To avoid a U.S. government agent and find the boy's missing mother. Eventually, they find her living under a false name in Arizona. The last episode ends with a hint at a second season. but lagging ratings led ABC to cancel the series. In the 1980s, the idea of aliens fascinated us. There were countless movies and series centered on this theme. In The Phoenix, anthropologists in Peru unearthed the sarcophagus of an extraterrestrial being known as Bennu of the Golden Light. He awakened after 40,000 years, finding himself in modern times. Can you imagine his confusion? Bennu possessed extraordinary powers like precognition, levitation, telepathy, astral projection, telekinesis, and clairvoyance. His Phoenix amulet, which drew its power from the sun, amplified some of these abilities, giving the show an almost spiritual feel. The mix of science fiction, mysticism, and hair-raising adventures made the Phoenix fascinating. Bennu was not your typical hero. He was gentle, wise, and solved problems using his powers and intellect. As the series began, Bennu searched for Mira, who had been placed on Earth 40,000 years earlier as his companion. Unfortunately, the show was canceled after 5 episodes, leaving fans wondering who was even watching TV back then. Most of us have wished we could travel in time. Time travel shows were always fascinating. In 1982, the Voyagers took on the Herculean task of setting history right. Jeffrey, a young man with a brilliant knowledge of history, got caught up in the antics of a time traveler named Phineas Fogg. The duo traveled through different eras, fixing things that had gone wrong in the past. They used a pocket watch-like device called the Omni, which helped them travel anywhere in time. The Voyagers was both educational and fun, letting viewers learn historical facts while immersing them in exhilarating adventures. Each episode featured the pair meeting famous figures like Cleopatra and Thomas Edison. Sadly, the high cost of recreating historical timelines caused the series to end prematurely. However, it left a lasting impression on the kids who followed it religiously. Wizards and Warriors was a comedy adventure and fantasy series that aired on CBS in 1983. The series brought the mythical land of Vaporons to life with an astronomical budget of $1 million per episode. In the 1980s, this was a lot of money. The story revolved around warring nations that employed mystical wizards to do their bidding. Only 8 one-hour episodes were made, but they were exciting and fun. Every child's fantasy, a show full of magic, mythical beasts, and wizards. As short-lived as it was, the show had something for everyone. Each episode showcased good versus evil, and of course, good won the day. Out of This World was a 1987 fantasy sitcom featuring Evie Garland, a teenage girl whose mother dropped a bombshell. Her dad, Troy, was an alien from Antares Prime. Evie discovered she had unique abilities and used her powers, sometimes disastrously, to get the upper hand in situations. She used a glowing cube on her dresser to consult her dad when things went wrong. Her father appeared at the end of season 4, and, well, we all hoped for a season 5, but it didn't happen. Evie was every teenage girl's fantasy, wishing they could have her special abilities to help them in certain situations. Despite negative reviews, it garnered a huge following, and most were disappointed when it didn't return. What was with the 80s and magic, aliens, and supernatural abilities? We're not complaining because we got a lot of great shows, which we fondly remember. Tucker's Witch was a detective comedy TV series that aired on CBS in 1982 and 1983. Rick and Amanda were married and owned a private detective agency in Laurel Canyon. However, Amanda had special powers, including being a psychic, helping them solve cases. Amanda did not fully control her powers, which sometimes got them in trouble. It only aired 12 funny episodes and was sadly forgotten. Sledgehammer was a satirical spoof of the rebellious cop movies of the mid-80s. The film Dirty Harry strongly influenced the sitcom. Sledgehammer came off as a tough-talking detective who walked around in mirror sunglasses. He wielded a huge .44 Magnum that he talked to and even slept with. He kept getting suspended from the police force, but his cases were always resolved, and his female partner often saved the day. Three's a Crowd was a spin-off series from the sitcom Three's Company that continued where the latter stopped. In Three's Company's last episode, Jack Tripper met Vicky Bradford and proposed. Vicky, jaded about marriage because of her parents' divorce, was willing to move in with Jack. They moved into an apartment above a restaurant Jack owned. Vicky's father did not like Jack or approve of the relationship. He bought Jack's restaurant and started dropping in on the couple constantly, hence the name Three's a Crowd. The sitcom premiered in September 1984 and only ran for one season. The show's ratings were hurt by the airing of The A-Team, featuring the beloved and famous Mr. T. If you're a motorbike enthusiast, you would have loved Street Hawk. The episodes were adrenaline-filled, and the stunts were wild and perfectly executed. The series premiered on January 4th, 1985. The recurring theme in the 1980s was a hero with a cool car, but Street Hawk was different. Jesse Mock, an ex-policeman injured in the line of duty, was recruited by Norman Tuttle for the Street Hawk project. His job? To ride the Street Hawk Superbike, which is every guy's dream. The bike was an all-terrain motorbike for fighting urban crime. It could reach up to 300 miles per hour and had crazy firepower. The show only lasted one season with 14 episodes and followed Jesse as he struggled to balance his normal life as a police public relations officer and his secret life as a crime fighter. Jennifer Slept Here was a fantasy sitcom TV series that ran for only one season of 13 episodes from 1983 to 1984. Jennifer Farrell was a popular actress who chased an ice cream truck near her home in 1978. Unfortunately, the truck backed up and killed her. 6 years later, a family moved into her house, which she still haunted. She was only visible to Joey, the family's teenage son. Naturally, nobody believed Joey about Jennifer's presence, and they thought he needed some sort of intervention. Teenagers who felt their parents never listened to them related to Joey. The sitcom ended after Ann Julian, who acted as Jennifer, returned to her old show, It's a Living. There were numerous shows back in the day. The 80s and 90s were particularly known as the creative years, and brilliant shows came out every other day. Unfortunately, most didn't last due to low ratings or financial issues. However, the shows were legendary, and most of us still look back and remember them with deep nostalgia. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share, and comment. You can also hit the notification bell to be notified each time we post a new video.